everybody, welcome to another draw with me, and it's one of my resolutions as an artist to advocate for self-care more and more this year 2021. To start with this self-care journey, why don't you just come along with me while I scribble, scrabble and chat about my experience in self-care. I think the ultimate goal of any self-care activity is for us to be healthy and happy, but tell me if I'm wrong. Sometimes, most of the time, when we feel depressed and unhappy, we would look for recommendations from other people, like, I'm so sad, I'm bored, I'm a loser, what should I do? And then other people would just tell you to go have fun or do stuff that you can easily find out with one Google search. You do all of those things and still feel sad. Or sometimes you will do those things and feel happy again, but after a while, when the effect of happiness is gone, you feel sad again and would call for that solution once again. There is nothing wrong with that. In fact, I have nothing to do with what you choose to make you happy. I just want to tell you a little secret about being happy and what your body needs the most. I'm no expert, but I've learned stuff I want to share with you guys. The stuff that I learned might sound really cliche, but it's true and you can test it out yourself. I think the very first thing that I've come to realize as the most basic of every self-care activity is to understand. It's like back in school when we are asked to solve a math problem. The teacher told us to understand how the math worked first before we jumped in and solved it. If you understand the root of something, that's when you can really use it to the better of it. For me, I understood that everything in this universe are being captured in my mind, and sometimes my mind can get a little stupid. Minds are easily tricked and usually subjective more than objective. I realized it is true after reading the book You're Not So Smart. It's a great book, but too much of new technical words for me. But anyways, after reading this book and had some time as well to sit down and observe myself, I looked back in the past and found it funny how stupid I was. My mind was tricked by itself. I think a lot of people can resonate with me on this because we all had heartbreaks, right? I looked back to so many times I thought this guy I was hanging out with would be my future and my everything, that we would become something. But then one night I would be thinking all about the time he didn't give me enough attention and overthinking about it and assuming that I was not good enough and so many other things that I would possibly think of. Then I would out of nowhere start asking him scale questions like, what do you think of me, or what do you think this relationship is? And of course, as a guy, he would detect crazy bitch vibe and back away. For right now, when I look back at it, I saw that I was so insecure about what he was offering to me, which I didn't and wouldn't ever have control over, instead of what I had to offer and many other aspects of my life that I was neglecting. So, lesson learned, right now with my current boyfriend, I don't assume anything anymore. I would ask him all the things that I'm unsure of and stop overthinking about stuff. Of course, I do still overthink sometimes, but instead of crying and suffering from the thoughts all by myself, I will share my insecurities with my boyfriend and reassure his feelings toward me. Early in the relationship, when we were still hanging out, I tried to not set any expectation towards the relationship and just focus on me having fun and not be desperate for anything. I asked him questions like, what do you think of me? And really told myself that it's just a question. I think I'm great and not so many have great taste. So whatever he thinks of me, I'm not gonna let it affect my feelings or anything. And I was lucky because my boyfriend was also the one who would literally answer the question honestly and understand that it's just a question. I was so hot-headed before. I had anger management issue. But after a while working with kids, I came to understand the root of anger and how to control it. The fact is that you get angry or scared of something because you don't understand it. And therefore, you can't predict what is happening next. Is it gonna be pleasant or terrible? So you tend to avoid it. At first, I would be so angry at kids and tend to be violent, like yelling at them. That was also a normal thing to do in Vietnam back then too, so I never thought it would be a problem. I was sad when kids didn't want to talk to me or to play with me when I was so confident that I'm pretty enough and funny enough. But over time, I realized what kids are actually into and how simple their minds are. I had the chance to work with kids as well in the United States, where kids are respected much more than in Vietnam. I came to understand them, why they act the way they act, and do what they do. So right now, when something happens with the kid or by the kid, I know what to do and understand why they made the trouble that they did, and everything seemed to be better from there. And from the experience with kids, I apply the theory into other things, and it seems to work as well. When you understand something, it is much better and faster to solve the problem. So right now, when something comes up and I can't find the solution right away, I would take a quiet moment and really look into the problem to understand it and to find solution from the root, with the help of my friends and family as well. Now I understand that everyone has their own story and no one deserves to suffer other people's pain. But I also understand that not everyone can understand that. So when going outside and meeting people, I tend to be nice to them, or at least not so mean, even when I'm feeling super shitty inside, because they don't know what I'm going through and I don't know what they are going through either. So why do we have to start a fight out of nowhere, right? I am actually the master of thinking outside the box. Sometimes I even thinking outside of this universe. So I understand that people don't always have the same thought. So before accusing someone of being annoying or mean, I try to understand the motive first. What if he's not thinking the way I'm thinking? What if it's part of this culture that I don't know about? If someone comes up to me and judged me before they know me, I would be pissed off as well. So I think I should practice empathy before demanding others to do it to me. The other thing that I learned throughout my quarantine meditation was to not feel guilty about not agreeing or accepting an offer. It's basically learning to say no. I knew how to say no before, but back then I had to come up with like a list of reasons why I refused or turned down an offer. Some of them might not even be true. But now I understand that if I agree just for the sake of keeping peace, it will actually tear me up inside, and it would eventually build an awkward atmosphere between me and the person. Like I would expect them to show me respect because I stepped out of my way to help them, but on their part, they didn't appreciate me the way I expected them to be because they didn't need my help that much. I also learned this from my boyfriend. I would ask him crazy requests like going to Hawaii for a week during this crazy time, or hosting me for 6 months while I'm here in the United States. I have to give you a little note here is that he has the tiniest apartment with 2 other roommates and never lived with a girlfriend before. But he honestly turned me down and discussed with me the situation, what if and what not, and together we came up with an idea how to get by this crazy situation in the world right now. So instead of crying at night that he doesn't love me the way I wanted, I work with him to find the best solution for the ultimate goal of my life without ruining the relationship or potentially put myself at a greater disaster or simply COVID. This reminds me of one of my convo with my mom before. It was basically about what to do when getting married. So my mom and some of my aunts as well advised me not to show all of my talents when meeting my future husband's family. The reason was that once they know what I was capable of, they will be asking and expecting me to do all of them. And of course, it would be not okay if I turned down the offer. Working with kids also helped me so much in saying no. You know how kids will be whining and giving us puppy dog eyes, and we'll feel so guilty if we don't agree to their requests, right? I was so lucky to be with my last host family who would be firm and reasonable with their kids and be the adult instead of letting kids take control of us. With a few other families that I have worked with, and as I observed, a lot of families in Vietnam would agree to any demand from the kids because they started throwing tantrums and such. So I try to think about what's best for their development as a well-rounded human being instead of my benefit, like to stop them from hurting my ears with their whines and cries. I learned so much from the last family because they just kept a straight face when the kids whined about something. The kid was like, but but I want to. And they would say, aw, too bad, sorry, but no. And move on to the next thing. And the thing is, when practicing saying no to the kids, within reason of course, they will get mad at you at first. But then they will move on from it and hang out with you just like nothing happened. And you don't have to worry about upsetting them or anything, if you let your mind move on too. I had the chance to be in the United States during the craziest election ever, and it was seemingly too much for me too. The crazy part is that we Vietnamese people were talking so much about this shit and we don't even get to vote. Honestly, now I know why Americans would have a rule of not talking politics as a courtesy. I started arguing about who was better and what was the ultimate goal of voting for the new president, and sometimes I got swayed into arguing about the way other person talked or the words they used incorrectly. It's all useless, and arguing and yelling at each other definitely not helping to solve anything or change the status of the election. This is one thing I'm still trying to focus on, solving the problem instead of getting pulled aside by a trivial mistake. Talking about this reminds me of labels we put on people, or we can call it bias. I try to put the right word here, but I think you know what I mean. It's so common now that we automatically put labels on people, like Asians eat rice, or lawyers are rich, or zodiac signs and political preference. I learned to look at people at different angles and not judge them until I know all sides of them. It was crazy how a Democrat would just detest a Republican immediately just because they are on the opposite sides. For me, I'm in neither of the parties, so I listen to both. I found out that you're signed up as Democrat doesn't mean you need to vote for the party or vice versa. People can change their perspective. And when I was watching the show Once Upon a Time on Disney Plus, and Emma was labeled by an anonymous fairy as the savior, she had to live her whole life as a savior, caring about the peace of everyone else, even if she had to sacrifice her own love. I was like, this is bullshit. She didn't choose to be born a savior, and it's selfish of all other people who expect her to save them while they are not doing anything good for her. Such lazy and selfish people. I try not to label myself as anything and live to my feelings. One other thing about this is the labels we put on our best friends and family. I feel like it's pretty common, especially in Asia, that we have to do certain things for those people because they are best friend or mom or dad, etc. I hate it when some parents would be smacking their kids and tell them to listen, and I'm your mom and you have to listen to me. They give themselves the privilege to control other people just because they gave birth to them. I mean, we didn't ask to be born. You made the decision, dude. So unless the parents are really good people and take really good care of the kids, they should never expect any respect from them. I just remember something too that is relevant to this, which is being content with what you have. You probably know about this already, but let me just recap it just in case you don't know what I'm talking about. So many times we would want stuff that we don't have, long for it, desperately yearn for it, but we forget the thing that we already have, which would have the same usage, but got neglected. I would have desires for new stuff all the time, like new clothes, new stationery items, and I would go crazy every time I walk in Daiso. I would have to ask my boyfriend to say no to my face. I would say to him like, control me please. And when he does, I would look back all the things I have to see if I actually need the new stuff. Being poor is also an advantage right here, because I have to consider something more and look for alternative from what I already have. Appreciating what I have is what I practiced with my boyfriend as well. My boyfriend is not a guy who is tall and big and rich and all of that, but he has so many other aspects that I would never find in other guys. But he is really charming. I got lucky at that one. I practice appreciation every day with whatever I have. Even with the shittiest, I would find the good thing about them and appreciate them. Loving life every day, you know. I think it's getting long now, but I want to talk about the last thing, depression. I think my mom suffered from it. I think so because she had never been diagnosed. because mental health is not so common in Vietnam. And then one of my host moms suffered from it, and I got to observe the whole situation. It was so crazy. My host mom, I would call her Mama, was fighting for some injustice issue at work, and she was fighting really hard for it to the point she couldn't think about anything else and got so tired every day. She asked me for relaxation advice because I seemed to be happy all the time, and I gave her a bunch. She did all of that, but she stayed depressed, and I didn't know how to help her after that. She got sent to the hospital and took some med, and she is fine now. But right now, when I think back about it, I realize that she did all those things physically, but she didn't let her mind escape the depression. She meditated with it, watched movies with it, ate with it, slept with it, while the one thing she needed to do was to release her mind. It's hard, I know, not everyone can do it, but it's a fact. My mom as well, she was talking all day about something that she overthought about, and it was all her assumption. But she would not let herself get out of that and focus on other things. So after all this, I can see that the mind has so much power and it can actually control so much. So whatever we do, we have to put our mind into it to get the best results. This sounds so cliche, but my point is, if you want to be happy, turn your mind towards thinking happy. And do not cling onto anything that is not happy, unless you get diagnosed with mental illness issue, which I don't have much knowledge about. You have all the ability to control your mind. The one thing that I really want to do right now is to buy a book about trauma and healing from trauma and learn more about that aspect, because apparently I don't really have like trauma in my life, and I feel like people with trauma have bigger problem to overcome it and to actually turn themselves towards happiness. But anyways, it's getting so long, but I have had fun talking about this with you guys. This has long been a topic I want to share with more people so we can all live happily together or as individuals. Some of the stuff I talked about might sound like from the book and it's just theory, but believe me, it's not only theory because I have tried it and it worked. If you have a topic about mental health that you want to discuss or you want me to talk about, please don't hesitate to comment below. And if I don't know about the topic, I will research about it and definitely talk about what I find. Thank you for listening and see you next time. Bye!